good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hakem. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So glad that you've joined us this morning. We've got a lot to cover. Mark writes in and says, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. May the 4th be with you. It's National Star Wars Day. And President Trump says the military will guide ships through the Strait of Hormuz, and he hopes Iran will behave. If not, boom, the war will start over again. Yes, we'll have those updates here in just a moment. How did everybody do on the Derby? Long shot, Golden Tempo coming in first. I will say, all of my quote-unquote smart bets, they lost. But the fact that my first vehicle was a Tempo, I did end up winning a little bit of money on the race. Pure dumb luck, but it was a fun one to watch. Your thoughts? Did you win anything? I don't think anybody had, I can't imagine, that rode in had Golden Tempo. Kind of an afterthought in most people's bets. Again, it just happened to be that my first car was a Tempo, so again, that first car still doing me right and winning me money all these years later. All right, I know we've got a lot of important topics to discuss, but last time I did this, we got a big response. So I'm going to try again. People in Ohio are battening down the hatches as locals fear a not-so-friendly neighborhood Sasquatch is making a comeback after a half a century of silence, with a new brood in tow. Northeast Ohio, the gloomiest corner of the Buckeye State, has been ripe with Bigfoot sightings since March. Some residents suspect a whole family of Sasquatchies is moving into the region after a particularly brutal winter, according to Fox 8. Many anonymous witnesses shared pictures of hulking footprints scattering primarily between Akron and Youngstown. Most of the prints are estimated 17 inches in length, which can only match a creature that is at least 7 feet tall or more. Believers who are brave enough to take the findings to the media described a creature between 6 and 10 foot tall, completely covered in dark fur. Okay. Mike Miller, the co-founder of the Ohio Night Stalkers Bigfoot Research Group, is leading the charge on the ground. And this isn't his first time as the emergent expert on all things Sasquatch in Ohio, a very niche market, which ranks 4th in the nation. Ohio ranks 4th in the nation for purported Bigfoot sightings. The last Bigfoot sighting or mass reports of sightings was in 1978. That winter is categorized as one of the worst in U.S. history, capped off with the Cleveland superbomb snowstorm that devastated the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes. When the season finally started to change, Bigfoot sightings spiked in Northeast Ohio. Miller, again, Mike Miller, co-founder of the Ohio Night Stalkers Bigfoot Research Group, suggested that this year's winter, where dual snowstorms swept across the country in just 1 month, flooded the Sasquatch's habitat, forcing it to come closer to civilization. Miller said it could be rearing young in that area, or you're in the area and they want you to go. Miller even captured recordings of apparent howls he claims don't match any known animal in North America. Some of those screams pegged higher than a baboon on the spectrograph, and that is evidence, he insisted. Jeremiah Byron, host of the Bigfoot Society podcast, is helping the investigation so far. Of the dozens of sightings around the Northeast Ohio, Brian highlighted one from a pair of hikers who recalled that the beast turned with its shoulders rather than its neck. Quote, that's a very important detail, which hardcore Bigfooters will realize that that's pretty crazy. Byron said he contacted one of the hikers who saw Bigfoot and was scared, who told him, I know what I saw, but I don't know what I saw. Surprising no one, perhaps none of the Bigfoot spotters have managed to snap a photograph despite the high-resolution cameras on modern smartphones. Naysayers doubt the beast will last very long, even if he is real, given the rough reputation of Northeast Ohio. So there's your update on Bigfoot, big feet in Ohio. Also, why not? Let's keep right along with it. Area 51 hit with 17 earthquakes in a single day. As Trump promises fresh UFO files released, and it's, quote, worth discussing. 17 earthquakes in a single day. Experts admitted the behavior is highly unusual. It obviously raises interest if there is certain bomb testing. The secretive Nevada Air Force Base, long associated with reports of UFOs, was hit by comparatively shallow quakes, prompting conspiracy theories about nuclear testing. The cluster of earthquakes ranged in magnitude from 2.5 to 4.4 and struck near the base, which is about 80 miles from Las Vegas, according to the U.S. Geological Survey data. The first most powerful quake struck 2.5 miles below ground just after 3 p.m. Wednesday local time, followed by more than a dozen small tremors. Stephen Burns claimed the activity was in an unusual place to get an earthquake and highlighted how shallow it was in a video on Twitter. He added that the unusual characteristics made it worth discussing in the context of if this is a covert underground nuclear test. The news comes as President Trump teased that the Pentagon is preparing to release very interesting UFO files uncovered by the administration. We're going to be releasing a lot of things that we haven't, the president said last week. I think some of it's going to be very interesting to people. There you go. Wow. Starting a little bit eerie on this Monday morning. All right. On a sad note, ex-New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, big ally of President Trump, has been hospitalized and is in critical condition, but stable. In a statement released by his spokesperson, Mayor Rudy Giuliani is currently in the hospital where he remains in critical but stable condition. Mayor Giuliani is a fighter who has faced every challenge in his life with unwavering strength, and he's fighting with that same level of strength as we speak. We do ask that you join us in prayer for America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. Now, it's unclear what ailment the 81-year-old ex-mayor and former Trump attorney is being treated for while in care of a Florida hospital. It should be noted that last week, I think it was, that he was, quote, under the weather. Trump praised Giuliani in a Truth Social post after the news broke about the hospitalization, saying, "Our fabulous Rudy Giuliani, a true warrior and the best mayor in the history of New York City, by far, has been hospitalized and is in critical condition. What a tragedy that he was treated so badly by the radical left lunatics. Democrats, all, and he was right about everything. They cheated on the elections, fabricated hundreds of stories, did anything possible to destroy our nation, and now look at Rudy." So sad, President Donald J. Trump. Former Mayor Eric Adams wished Giuliani a speedy recovery, adding that he was saving a cigar for him once he was released from the hospital, saying, quote, "Mayor Rudy Giuliani devoted his life to the city. From his day as a federal prosecutor to leading New York through 9/11, he was there when we needed him most. I'm praying for Rudy and his family and hoping for a full recovery. We shared a cigar in Florida not too long ago. I'm saving one for you when you're back home, my friend." Giuliani will turn 82 on May the 28th and is set to celebrate his birthday on Long Island with supporters who purchase a $125 a person ticket the following Saturday. Now, it is sad. He was such a hero in New York and really from all political sides after 9/11. But when he started to work with President Trump and started to support President Trump, at that point, candidate Trump, that's when, as always, the long knives came out and they tried to destroy him and his reputation. And now, weirdly, as he's been hospitalized, I saw that Saturday Night Live was mocking him over the weekend. Jimmy Kimmel mocked him on Friday's show. So sad news. Also, man, we're moving quick this morning. I see some waves. Look at all these waves coming in. You know the memes about Marco Rubio. Then we're going to get into the real nitty-gritty of the news. But you see the memes of Marco Rubio where he has every job known to man. Well, this weekend, he played right into it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio going viral, not for diplomacy, but for stepping behind a DJ booth at a family wedding and hyping up the crowd in a clip shared online that's quickly gaining attention. The video, posted by White House Deputy Chief of Staff Dan Scavino, shows Rubio wearing headphones and standing behind a DJ setup, leaning over the controls as music plays, and guests dance nearby. At several points, he pumps his fist, nods along to the beat, and appears to cue up the next track, drawing cheers from people gathering around the booth. Dan Scavino wrote, moments ago behind the scenes, our great Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, DJ's weddings too. Here he is in action tonight at a family wedding. Let's go. The track playing in the video is Shiver by John Summit and Hala, a high-energy dance song known for its pulsing beat and dramatic drop, a fitting backdrop as the crowd moves in sync and reacts to the music. The unexpected scene has set social media on fire, with users reacting to the unusual sight of a sitting U.S. Secretary of State taking on DJ duties at what appears to be a family celebration. This is coming from Fox News. One user wrote, Marco becoming the official White House DJ. Another user wrote, Marco can do it all, posting another AI image showing Rubio at the turntables as Vice President J.D. Vance sits nearby on an ottoman surrounded by haze and lighting effects. Rubio, who is serving as acting national security advisor and has held several other roles, has taken on a wide range of responsibilities over the course of his career, and now at least for one night, he can add DJ to that list. There you go. All right, we're going to read your comments. Make sure I got all those waves in there. Trump did say that the U.S. will guide the stranded ships out of the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to talk about that. I've got a lot here about the Democrat Party. Some major issues, whether it's Gavin Newsom. I don't know if you saw it over the weekend, but Bill Maher really holding him accountable. Trump then went on to criticize both Bill Maher and Gavin Newsom, or as he calls him, Gavin Newscom. We're going to talk about that. Also, a few things here just in general about the Democrat Party, what they're looking at, and also New York State issues as we enter well over a month and 3 days with no budget in New York State. We're going to tell you some updates going on this week as our representatives, our assemblymen and senators return to Albany today. We'll talk about that as well. So we're just getting warmed up on this Monday morning edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
To them used to be, before talking to 988.
I felt alone.
I thought seeing hard things was just part of the job. I thought that having a bad day at work meant I was failing. But then I connected with someone at 988.
A real person texted back. Someone listened without judgment.
Now I know. Now I know it's okay to let someone help me too.
And I'm stronger than I thought.
We hear you. Call, text, or chat 988.
Your adventure starts with ServU Credit Union. Wherever you're headed, ServU Credit Union can help you get there with auto and camper loans with special rates. Kick your adventure off with a camper or RV rate of only 6.99% for 120 months. Or get a great deal on your next auto loan, 4.99% for up to 72 months. ServU Credit Union does not determine your loan rate by your credit score, so rest assured that you will receive our best rate. Get started at ServUCU.com today.
Meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We kick off the work week with a quiet stretch as well as a nice day ahead. 71, a few degrees above daily average. We'll see some sunshine and dry until this evening and overnight. Mostly in the overnight hours, some rain chances arriving with temperatures bottoming out in the mid and lower 50s. Then we'll be warm on Tuesday with mid 70s, but additional thunderstorms in the afternoon. Notice how active
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We got a lot of comments coming in. Keep them coming in. We had this happen on Friday, too. Everybody's chatting. I love it. All right, let's get right to it. Good morning. Get this. On the news this morning, I saw a segment that advocated solar panels. They were trying to push the idea by saying that it retains moisture in the vegetation below them In addition, if you have cows, the cows will hang out in the shade provided by the panels, and because they are cooler, they produce more milk. Then they added this kicker. You'll get $1,000 per acre rental fee. I say, see ya, I pass. I don't buy your frivolous excuses for these ugly monstrosities. I'll plant trees instead. Thank you for that. That's a stretch there with some of their reasoning, isn't it? Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. My smart bets on the Derby lost too, but what a great race. And every horse made it back to the barn safely. It's always fun to hear the stories behind the horses, and the winner and his trainers had good ones. That's absolutely true. It was a great race, and to see Golden Tempo come from behind like that and was such a long shot, and the payouts with him being at the top of the list, and then you had Place was a favorite, right? And then Show was another huge long shot. So you had, I would have liked to hit that superfecta or trifecta, but I did not. The viewer writes in, and who doesn't like to see Marco Rubio in jockey silks? No, a different kind of jockey. Disc jockey. No. Mark writes in, speaking of Jimmy Kimmel, it's terrible to cut down a sick person. And I haven't heard anything more about him cutting down Melania Trump. Have you? Yeah, apparently there's a couple groups that are scared now that the FCC is looking into ABC's license. Was it Move On or Code Pink or one of them is putting out billboards in defense of Jimmy Kimmel. But there is a lot of talks of this could be the last straw. We'll see. I want to hold my breath. We seem to get excited about things like that, and then it doesn't come to fruition. But if I hear anything more, I will let you know. Now, Trump says the U.S. will begin to guide stranded ships out of the Strait of Hormuz starting today after a cargo ship came under attack near the waterway. Trump said countries from all over the world that operate the hundreds of ships stuck around the Strait of Hormuz have reached out to the United States for help, with the president vowing to, quote, step up. On Truth Social last night, he wrote, for the good of Iran, the Middle East, and the United States, we have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways so that they can freely and ably get on with their business. These are ships from areas of the world that are not in any way involved with that which is currently taking place in the Middle East. The ship movement is merely meant to free up people, companies, and countries that have done absolutely nothing wrong. They are victims of circumstance. The president said the operation, which he dubbed Project Freedom, would begin Monday morning local time. The U.S. military confirmed it will begin supporting the mission to restore freedom of navigation for commercial shipping. Our support for this defensive mission is essential to regional security and the global economy, as we also maintain the naval blockade, said Admiral Brad Cooper. Trump's announcement came hours after a cargo ship was struck by a multiple small craft near the strait, the first such attack on a shipping vessel in the waterway since April the 22nd. The ship, which was not immediately identified, was hit right off the coast of Sirak, Iran, just east of the strait. According to the British military's United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Center, all crew members were reported to be safe. No country or group has taken responsibility for the attack, but Iran's military has repeatedly warned that any ship that tries to navigate the strait would be attacked unless they pay a toll and prove that they are not affiliated with the United States or Israel. Beyond the threat of strikes, Trump noted that the estimated 20,000 seafarers stuck in the Persian Gulf are running low on food and everything else necessary for large-scale crews to stay on board in a healthy and sanitary manner. The United States had previously highlighted the danger being posed to the trapped ships and their crew amid Iran's stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz. Trump said that if Iran were to allow the ships to cross without problem, it would be a sign of goodwill amid tenuous peace talks between the two countries. If in any way the humanitarian process is interfered with, that interference will unfortunately have to be dealt with forcefully, wrote Trump. Now, Sean Duffy, Transportation Secretary, was on ABC's This Week when Martha Raddatz asked, we just heard our experts say gas prices could break record highs, and even if the strait opened today, it would take months to recover from those gas prices for them to go down. What is your reaction? Duffy said, well, a couple things. I'll tell you that every time I go into the Oval Office, I hear the president talk about energy prices. That's been going on since he took this, and his second term in Washington. He's been concerned about American energy dominance, making sure Americans produce more, we drive energy prices down, and he's also confronted with the idea that could there be a nuclear Iran? And he understands the threat of that reality. Iran's been the most destabilizing force in the world for 40 years. He sees that as untenable. And I would agree with him. We can't have a nuclear Iran, and so he's taking action, bold action. And again, he's going to make sure that the world and America is safer as we look forward, not just in the several months after this conflict, but in the several years and decades after he's out of his presidency. Raditz following up, saying, so that clearly seems the most important thing to President Trump. But meanwhile, back to those gas prices. Do you agree it could take months, even if the Strait opened today, and that those gas prices might break record highs? Duffy said, well, listen, so I'm not at Department of Transportation. I'm not in the energy sector. So I'm at Department of Transportation. I'm not in the energy sector. But from all the briefings that I've had, once the Strait's open, you'll see prices come down immediately. And again, there's going to be a tail to that. It's going to take time to get back to where they were before the conflict began. But you're going to see, I think, immediate relief once the Strait opens. Now, Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, said Trump is absolutely not following war powers law. On Meet the Press, Kristen Welker said President Trump, as you know, sent a letter to Congress arguing he does not need congressional approval because the ceasefire paused the clock effectively. Do you think the administration is following the law? Adam Schiff saying no, absolutely not. And it's important to recognize that this war was unlawful, unconstitutional from the start. We didn't have to wait 60 days to reach that conclusion because under the Constitution, only Congress can initiate, authorize, or declare war. The only exceptions are if the United States is attacked or there's an imminent threat of attack. Then the president can take action in the near term. That's when the 60-day clock begins. If there's a legitimate reason to begin the war at the start, and there wasn't here, this is a war of choice, which has now brought a terrible cost in 13 service members who lost their lives. Scores of others injured, many seriously injured, highest gas prices now in years. It's pushed inflation up to a high in several years. And of course, the opportunity cost is that we can't invest in hospitals and healthcare and things that would improve the quality of life for Americans. Different budget lines, but I'll continue. But this war was plagued from the start. It's also important in terms of the War Powers Act that Susan Collins' quote illustrates. She's accurate that it dictates that U.S. forces have to be removed after 60 days unless Congress has intervened to authorize action. We haven't. The Navy is still deployed. It is still blockading Iranian ports. It's still interceding ships. There is no exception for the U.S. Navy to the War Powers Act. So what Mr. Bland said is absolutely wrong. I think they understand that. And what's more, the president claimed at the outset of our segment that no president has sought an authorization to use force is also simply wrong. George W. Bush, of course, did both in Afghanistan and with the Iraq War. And interesting that he skips over President Obama. I know I'm running late, but just to wrap up our discussion on Iran, and you can continue to talk about it, but that's kind of the breaking news this morning. But Rich Lowry writes, it's not 1973 anymore, and that's a very good thing for the United States. Back then, the U.S. imported more than a third of its oil, much of it from the Middle East, and it paid the price. Now, it's in a transformed position. Drill, baby, drill is arguably the most successful public policy of the last 20 years. It started life in 2008 as a catchphrase coined by Michael Steele, former Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, and has now been affected with enormous economic and strategic benefits to the United States. On top of sweeping innovations forged by private industries, President Trump has driven a stake through the heart of Joe Biden's net zero energy policy, based on the delusion that we could phase out fossil fuels, and has pursued U.S. energy dominance instead. As anyone who has recently filled their car's gas tank knows, we aren't immune from the Iran war's turmoil, but our newly robust energy position provides a cushion. It's certainly better than the alternative. As Bruce Andre Bebeff notes in an account of the oil crisis of the 1970s, imported oil constituted less than 15% of our energy consumption in the mid-50s. As the U.S. population grew and energy consumption grew even faster, we needed more. By 1973, imported oil accounted for 36% of domestic consumption. At the same time, domestic production in the continental United States declined in 72 and 73. We got slammed during the Arab oil embargo. The federal government adopted a raft of policies intended to achieve energy independence, none of which worked. The United States was importing more than 40% of its oil when the Iranian Revolution roiled the global energy market again in 1979. But the shale revolution created a new era. Domestic petroleum production increased from 9.5 million barrels per day in 2010 to 19.3 million in 2019. We are now the world's largest producer of natural gas. By 2020, the United States has become a net exporter of petroleum products for the first time in 70 years. Our new position makes us less vulnerable to crises. In fact, now we can help other countries weather them. U.S. natural gas provided a lifeline to Europe as it coped with the energy effects of the Ukrainian war. During the Iran conflict, the price of West Texas Intermediate crude, representing U.S. oil, has been consistently lower than that of Brent crude, the international price, although both have increased. More starkly, the price for natural gas in the United States is at roughly a 17-month low, while major Mideast conflict that has throttled 20% of the world's supply is ongoing. In contrast, the price in Europe is up more than 80% and in Asia more than 100%. Already at record levels, U.S. gas production is only increasing. There's so much gas in West Texas that producers literally don't know what to do with it. The pipelines are full. With Qatar canceling gas deliveries, more buyers have looked to the United States for supply. We'd be exporting even more, except our pipelines and export plants are already at capacity. This is why increasing drilling and fracking isn't so much the issue anymore, as it is building more oil and gas infrastructure, pipelines, refineries, liquefied natural gas terminals, and the like. The Western Hemisphere stands to gain from the Iran crisis, as the closure of the Strait of Hormuz underlines the inherent risk of reliance on Middle Eastern suppliers. If that wasn't bad enough for OPEC, the United Arab Emirates has decided to go its own way in a major blow to the cartel. From the perspective of the 1970s, this is a geopolitical dream. None of this is to deny that we need the Strait of Hormuz reopened for all sorts of reasons, including the price at the pump. But there's no doubt that the beginning of wisdom in U.S. energy policy was drill, baby, drill. All right, on that note, we got to take a short break, then we're going to talk about the Democrat Party. We've got quite a few things here about New York State issues, some opinion pieces, maybe if we have an opportunity. But most importantly, I want to hear from you. Oh, a quick announcement. Now I'll make the announcement when we come back about some upcoming interviews. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Watch Big Fox News on YouTube.
The thing more American than apple pie and 4th of July is baseball. This year, WYDC is bringing you 25 New York Mets games free over the air this spring and summer. No fees and no subscription services. Tune into WJKP 48.2 to watch the New York Mets this MLB season. Let's go Mets!
If you want an experience that wakes you up, a place where you can scream to your heart's delight, go ahead. No one will hear you anyway. Here, you don't just watch. You feel. Come as you are and have a damn good time. That rumble you hear, that growl you feel, that's us.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
On board Rocky Mountaineer, your journey through the Canadian Rocky Mountains is like no other. One moment you're surrounded by towering giants. You've never felt so small. The next moment, you've never felt so taken care of. Now that's a journey worth taking. Rocky Mountaineer.
Glass Back the Park, presented by Simmons Rockwell. Friday, May 22nd, it's award-winning country music powerhouse Drake White with soulful country entertainer John King opening. Friday, May 22nd in Riverfront Centennial Park in Corning. Free and open.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Some viewer comments here. Mark says, I heard a good saying the other day. Gas prices go up like a rocket and fall like a feather. That is a good quote. This viewer writes, no, seriously, Frank, I saw Marco Rubio in horse racing jockey silks. If I can find it again, I'll send it to you. Well, I did see the AI version of that, where it's him always getting these new jobs and these new tasks. So they'll put him in some kind of outfit where he looks kind of upset. It's from the White House. I did see that, but I think it was AI is the one I saw. Comment from a different viewer. I saw on a news website that Iran is using marine animals as mine carriers. If this isn't a testimony that supports President Trump's claim that Iran's ability to retaliate has been decimated, I don't know what is. And the sky is falling sorts who push the narrative that the price of gasoline will remain high even if the war ended tomorrow are full of it. Comment from a different viewer. I find Democrats incredible. The price of gas was $5.03 on June 2022. Only one war. That war continues, but Trump brought the price down. Now there are two wars, and gas is only $4.39. Spirit Airline could afford to fly under Biden. The Biden administration killed Spirit when they refused the merger. Yes, a lot of people are putting the blame on Biden. Elizabeth Warren still celebrating that they blocked the merger. That sounds like a wild situation where people kind of stranded as Spirit just closed like that. This is an update from a story that we had last week, and Tim Graham writes this piece. Tim Graham is an executive editor at Newsbusters. He said Minnesota Democrat Representative Ilhan Omar checks so many boxes on the wokeness list. Black, female, Muslim refugee from Africa. It's a born on third base situation. Liberal journalists could consider her Donald Trump's worst nightmare. That's why they celebrated her victorious first campaign for Congress back in 2018. So when Omar messes up on an 11 on a scale of 1 to 10, the media couldn't care less. This week, the liberal congresswoman was in the news for having read World War II as World War XI. It wasn't a major gaffe because the press chose to cover for her instead of covering the mistake, as they have throughout her entire career. On November 7th, 2018, CBS correspondent Jim Axelrod simply touted Omar for being the first ever Somali American elected to Congress at age 36. Born in Somalia, she and her family fled the violence of civil war when she was 8. After years in a refugee camp in Kenya, she immigrated to the U.S. when she was 11, learning English in 3 months. On NBC, congressional correspondent Casey Hunt rolled Omar into a report that touted gains for Democrat women. The newest Congress features more than 100 women, a new record. Among them, the first Muslim woman, Michigan's Rashida Tlaib, and Minnesota's Ilhan Omar. Diversity, equity, and inclusion goals translate to media coddling, polishing, and diffusing. But the broadcast networks have a partisan tendency to celebrate Democrats' firsts and ignore Republican firsts, as they did in 2018, touting Omar and skipping California Republican Representative Young Kim of California, becoming one of the first Korean American women elected to Congress. They didn't focus on Omar's anti-Semitism. In November of 2012, Omar tweeted, "Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel." Within a month of being elected, Omar inspired a bipartisan resolution against anti-Semitism when she suggested money from a Jewish PAC was driving U.S. politicians to defend Israel, writing, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby." Since most Democrats were appalled, the networks briefly covered it. But overall, Omar has been covered less as an offender and more as the offended. The latest wave of positive coverage came last December when President Trump called Omar garbage after massive fraud by Somali Americans in Minnesota was uncovered. One of the fraudsters who pleaded guilty last year was Guhad Hashid Said, who worked as a staffer on Omar's first 2 congressional campaigns. On December 7th of 2025, on the Face of the Nation episode, CBS host Margaret Brennan tossed Omar a softball that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, quote, alleged that people who were tied to you or your campaign were involved in this broad, brazen scheme to rip off the Minnesota state welfare system. Do you want to respond to that? Do you know what he is referring to? Omar simply replied, I really don't, and I don't think the secretary himself understands what he's referring to. Then in January, at a town hall meeting, a strange man squirted a plastic syringe of liquid, apparently white wine vinegar, at Omar as she proposed abolishing ICE. And everyone covered the news of this assault. Nobody should be squirting things on politicians, but some politicians are much more cherished than others. ABC pointed fingers at right-wingers. Congressional reporter Jay O'Brien emphasized Omar has been a frequent target for conservative anger. President Trump has called her garbage and mocked her Somali heritage. Trump told his ABC colleague Rachel Scott she probably had herself sprayed, knowing her. The same people who expressed concerns at Omar getting a squirt of an unknown substance were amused in 2008 when an Iraqi threw a shoe at the head of President George W. Bush at a press conference. An instant pop culture classic, gushed ABC Nightline host Terry Moran. But overall, Omar has been covered less as an offender, as I said, as the defendant. This week, the huge Libs of TikTok X account displayed video of Omar in January making a comical gaffe, reading from her notes about World War II and instead calling it World War XI, sparking a wave of satire, including jokes about sequels like Back to the Future 11, Our Island State, Hawaii 11, and of course her name looks like 11 Omar. The networks ignored that. It was no Dan Quayle moment when the vice president read off a card at a spelling bee that potato was spelled differently. These are minor gaffes, but in Quayle's case, it was fodder for liberal comedians for years. He was lampooned as a stupid person. Newsweek rushed to fact-check a true video claiming it had been shared online without context because Omar corrected herself. None of the networks have been interested in an ongoing mess over her financial statements to Congress. Yeah, this is something that was so overlooked and just shows you the bias in the media. Omar's filing valued her husband's winery at about $1 million to $5 million. Manette's venture capital management company, Rose Lake Capital, was valued between $5 million and $25 million. But to proclaim that Omar's net worth skyrocketed, a spokesperson for her called it a right-wing smear campaign. On April 4th, Manette's winery abruptly shut down as House Republicans investigated their finances. Omar now claims that the value of her and her husband's assets is between $18,000 and $95,000, and not, as originally reported, between $6 million and $30 million. All this revisionist history has been spurred by Republicans and conservative media outlets. The same broadcast networks have spent hours of time on New York Republican Representative George Santos until he was expelled from Congress, refused to live up to their righteous boasting that they are, quote, holding government accountable. I thought that was a good update from Ilhan Omar and her World War XI, quote unquote, gaffe. All right. Oh, I forgot this. I got out of order too. Darn it. We were talking about Iran. I'm running late. We got another update on NATO, I believe, right? Yeah. When we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
More cars. Lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Whether you're in the market for new, used, or certified pre-owned, Simmons Rockwell locations across the Twin Tiers have more of what you're looking for with our best price right on the windshield. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
William Mattar has a reputation for being a good guy.
Because I am a good guy.
For being focused on motor vehicle accident cases.
Because I focus on motor vehicle accidents.
For fighting for his clients.
Because I fight for my clients.
If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, it matters who you hire. It matters in the experience as well as the results. Call William Mattar. Visit WilliamMattar.com.
This year, WYDC is bringing you 25 New York Mets games free over the air this spring and summer. No fees and no subscription services. Tune into WJKP 48.2 to watch the New York Mets this MLB season. Let's go Mets!
Glass Back the Park, presented by Simmons Rockwell. Saturday, May 23rd is Tracy's A Taylor Experience.
Welcome to our tribute to the Eras Tour.
Free and open to the public. Brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Down in play, I'll write your name.
Meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We kick off the work week with a quiet stretch as well as a nice day ahead. 71, a few degrees above daily average. We'll see some sunshine and dry until this evening and overnight. Mostly in the overnight hours, some rain chances arriving with temperatures bottoming out in the mid and lower 50s. Then we'll be warm on Tuesday with mid 70s, but additional thunderstorms in the afternoon. Notice how active
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer: if you consider the majority of idiotic statements and criminal activities in Congress, and you were being truthful about it, you would find that the majority of craziness has and is attributed to naive Democrats who should never have been voted for in the first place. The first place. To paraphrase you, Frank, get to know who you are voting for. Absolutely. You need to get to know who you are voting for. I meant that I got out of order on this. President Trump has said that far more troop reductions are in the offing after the Pentagon announced on Friday that some 5,000 U.S. soldiers would be withdrawn from bases in Germany over the coming year. In a press gaggle on Saturday, President Trump said of his planned troop reduction in Germany, "We're going to cut way down, and we're cutting a lot further than 5,000. The U.S. leader had previously planned to bring back around 9,500 soldiers from Germany during his first term in office. However, his successor, Joe Biden, reversed the decision before it could be enacted. At present, approximately 36,000 troops are stationed in Germany and around 80,000 across Europe. The announced move comes amid a broader shift in U.S. military policy towards NATO and Europe in light of the response to the Iran conflict. So I just want to give you that update if you missed it over the weekend. You know, I'm going to skip ahead here because of what that last viewer said. Here it is. Jason Chavez, writing at Fox News. Chavez is a Fox News contributor. He used to be, I believe, a congressperson. He said a bumper crop of ethics allegations in the current 119th Congress is contributing to record low approval numbers for Congress this cycle. Already 3 members of Congress have resigned this term. Some waiting months after credible allegations surfaced. More need to go. Anytime you get 535 people together, somebody is going to be doing something stupid somewhere. But the public deserves faster, bolder action when their representatives behave badly. Delayed action undermines public trust. Though every American is owed due process, with elected officials in Congress, it must happen faster. The public should not have to wait out a scandal-plagued lame duck term. Congress must act with greater urgency when trust is broken. Voters deserve swift special elections in which they can directly choose a replacement. Delayed action only fuels the perception that government is rigged and unresponsive. Approval ratings for Congress are in the basement, with Gallup's April polling finding that just 10% approve while 86% disapprove. This is a direct threat to congressional legitimacy. Accountability must be real, not performative. Already, 3 House members have resigned. Representative Eric Swalwell, Democrat from California, Representative Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, Democrat from Florida, and Representative Tony Gonzalez, Republican from Texas. But those resignations only came after intense public pressure, not through the routine process. Several more representatives continue to serve under a cloud of credible allegations. In the case of McCormick, voters were effectively disenfranchised for 5 months after their representative was indicted on fraud charges. Initial referrals date back even further. Meanwhile, she retained her full voting power, committee assignments, salary, staff, and benefits. A presumptive expulsion should follow a federal indictment. Instead, we got delays for political leverage. The problem is not going away. With $7 trillion going out of the door each year, Congress is a magnet for people who may be easily compromised by power. Furthermore, Capitol Hill is crawling with staffers in their mid-20s who are young, talented, and hungry. Some can be easily taken advantage of in an uneven power dynamic. When I was first elected to the House of Representatives, said Jason Chavez, I really thought we all wanted the same thing, but just had different ways of getting there. I left realizing this is truly a fight between good and evil playing out under the hot lights of Congress. I observed that about a third of the representatives in Congress really are there to do the right thing. They wake up every day looking for ways to solve problems. Another third are phoning it in, harmless but ineffective. But the last group, in my opinion, is there to line its own pockets or serve someone other than its constituents. I appreciate the work of the bipartisan House Ethics Committee, which has its hands full. With an equal number of Democrats and Republicans, the committee is less driven by partisanship than other committees. However, because the balance of power is so tight, part of what's making those forced resignations possible is the even number of violators from each party. The process is not entirely driven by justice. It's still about political power. Congress needs to adopt faster processes to act as a deterrent. Clear triggers, such as automatic ethics subcommittee review within 30 days of an Office of Congressional Conduct referral or federal indictment, could coexist with due process. Presumptive suspension from committee assignments or floor votes on major matters would protect institutional integrity without presuming guilt. Special elections could follow more quickly, empowering voters rather than insulating incumbents. Elected officials hold power and trust, not as a personal right. The Constitution explicitly grants each chamber authority to discipline its members, including expulsion. There is no requirement for glacial timelines. Certainly, representatives are innocent until proven guilty, but public office is no courtroom. Voters still have a right to timely, functional representation. Prolonged service does not so much protect the innocent as shield the politically connected. The American people fund the government and grant it power. We should not have to beg for basic integrity, especially from those who have sworn an oath to uphold it. Congress must choose, cling to slow motion, self-protecting, or delivering the swift, credible accountability voters have every right to demand. The health of our republic depends on making the right choice. I thought that was a very powerful statement from Jason Chaffetz. All right, keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. We got a couple things here about James Comey. As I said, a lot here about the Democrat Party and kind of what they're going through as they near the midterm and look ahead to 2028 in the presidential race. A couple of questions I'll be picking your brain over, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
An accident can turn your life upside down in an instant. Pain, medical bills, time off work, it's overwhelming. And when you look to the insurance company for help, they don't see you. They don't see your family or what you've lost. To them, you're just a number, just dollars on a spreadsheet. Their job is to pay you as little as possible. At WYDC Injury Law, we see the person behind the claim. We fight for your recovery, your future, and your peace of mind. If you've been hurt in New York, call 607-500-HURT.
At Carr Phillips and Flint, we want people to know that we're a welcoming family.
We not only serve our community, but we live in our community. Our kids go to school here. It's not uncommon to see one of us at a local business or for a walk at a sporting event.
The community here and everything it has to offer. I can't think of a better place to raise my children.
We are a part of this community and we're invested in this community.
Visit carpentersphillipsflint.com to learn more about our family-owned funeral homes.
Tide isn't just a gentle ebb and flow. It's a mighty force of change. Just like the tide shapes our shorelines, we can shape our planet's future and protect the world's oceans from its biggest threats. Help us turn the tide. Join Oceania's wave of ocean advocates who are making a difference in the world.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from Ken. He writes in, I listened to a couple of videos that explained why our gasoline prices have risen, even though we pump enough oil to be self-sufficient. I usually don't believe stuff like this, but given that I have read in the past, it makes sense. We produce light crude oil, but our refineries are geared to refining heavy crude oil, since that was what we historically bought in huge quantities from other countries, way before we pumped the amount of oil we do today. It would cost hundreds of billions of dollars to refit our refineries, to refine light crude instead of heavy crude. So we sell the light crude and purchase heavy crude to refine. Countries won't pay more for our light crude, but we are forced to pay more for heavy crude, which we can refine into gasoline. So our gas prices go up even though we pump more oil than we need to fuel the country. If all this is true, it makes sense on why gas prices have risen. That's very interesting, Ken. I would like to definitely do more research on that. That's really fascinating. Todd Blanche was on Meet the Press on Sunday. He said that the indictment of James Comey, the former FBI director, went beyond that Instagram post that said 8647. Kristen Welker said, quote, a grand jury has indicted the former FBI director for this Instagram post. I want to put it up. I think a lot of people have seen it at this point. 8647 in Seychelles, which the indictment says, quote, a reasonable recipient who is familiar with the circumstances would interpret as a serious expression of an intent to do harm to the President of the United States. How does that image of Seychelles amount to a serious threat against the president's life? Todd Blanche said, well, every case requires an investigation. And what you just showed is one part of that investigation. What you just showed is the Instagram post. Rest assured that the career assistant United States attorneys in North Carolina, the career FBI agents, the career Secret Service agents that investigated this case didn't just look at the Instagram post and to walk away. That's why you saw an indictment last week, notwithstanding the fact that it was last May that the post was made. So I am not permitted to go into the details of what the grand jury heard or found, as you know. But rest assured that it's not just the Instagram post that leads somebody to get indicted. Ooh, interesting. How do you prove intent, said Welker. Mr. Blanche, when Mr. Comey himself said he didn't understand that some people would look at it and think about violence. Blanche said, you prove intent like you always prove intent. You prove intent with witnesses. You prove intent with documents, with materials. So again, this is not just about a single Instagram post. This is about a body of evidence that the grand jury collected over the series of about 11 months. The evidence was presented to the grand jury, and it's not the government. It's not the Department of Justice. It's not Todd Blanche that returns an indictment against James Comey. It's the grand jury. I've said repeatedly this was an investigation that lasted 11 months. If the only facts that existed was the posting of Instagram, obviously that wouldn't have taken 11 months. And so when Mr. Turley talks about whether it's facially unconstitutionally absent unknown facts or circumstances, we would necessarily have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt at trial every element of this crime, which we're prepared to do. Welker said, can you and will you tell the public what any of those other facts are? Blanche said, absolutely. It's called a trial. That's what happens in every single case. We indict thousands of cases every year. Every time one of those cases, there's an indictment, and then eventually there's a trial or some sort of disposition. As a trial, a public trial, and we will open to the public, everybody in this country will know exactly what evidence the government has against Mr. Comey. And this is the cliche line, of course, leave it to Christine Welker. Is it worth noting that on Amazon.com, we looked this up, there are dozens of products with the same terminology. We're showing it right here, 8647 being sold and purchased right now. Should individuals selling or buying 8647 merchandise be concerned about they're going to be prosecuted by the DOJ? Blanche said this isn't about a single incident, okay? I mean, of course not. That's posted constantly. That phrase is used constantly. There are consistently men and women who choose to make threatening statements against President Trump. Every one of those statements do not result in an indictment. Of course, there are facts, there are circumstances, there are investigations that have to take place. And we have charged dozens and dozens of men and women this year with threatening President Trump and others. So this isn't a new charge we're bringing. Thom Tillis, a kind of a deep stater, a swamp creature, said he cannot find evidence of the term 86 being used as a call of violence. He was on Jake Tapper's State of the Union. He said, no, I don't know, again, if this is prosecution, which is coming from the Eastern District of North Carolina. If this whole case is based on a picture in the sand of a North Carolina beach, it again makes no sense to me. I used to work in the restaurant industry, and I think 86 actually has its roots as a cook. That's my understanding, too. It has roots as 86ing the menu or 86ing things in the product. I can't find any evidence except some that's come up with the president made the comment about the movies. Well, I don't want to go through anything. Thom Tillis, Republican from North Carolina, doesn't see any reason to go after James Comey. That is the deep state that we talk so frequently about, the kind of rhino mentality. But we got to take a short break, and then we're going to wrap up hour number one. So get your last second comments in for this hour.
I grew up partially on a farm outside of Painted Post. There was a lumber mill through the woods and down about a half a mile. They provided all the slab wood, it's called. Outhouses were made of slab wood. I learned a lot of carpentry there. You don't need to start trying to be Michelangelo.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Glass Back the Park, presented by Simmons Rockwell. Friday, May 22nd, it's award-winning country music powerhouse Drake White with soulful country entertainer John King opening. Friday, May 22nd in Riverfront Centennial Park in Corning. Free and open to the public. Brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Meteorologist Brandon Weather We kick off the work week with a quiet stretch as well as a nice day ahead. 71, a few degrees above daily average. We'll see some sunshine and dry until this evening and overnight. Mostly in the overnight hours, some rain chances arriving with temperatures bottoming out in the mid and lower 50s. Then we'll be warm on Tuesday with mid 70s, but additional thunderstorms in the afternoon. Notice how active this
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Comment from a viewer, 86 is 86 whether or not you're 86ing a menu or a person. That's a good point. That was a pretty weak argument from Tom Tillis. I'd always heard the story was it was about fire code, that, you know, if it was at 85 people, they could say 86 them. I don't know what the story is. So Clarence Thomas, will wrap up hour number one with this. Clarence Thomas this week, Supreme Court Justice, will reach a major milestone on the U.S. Supreme Court, becoming the second longest serving justice in American history. Along the way, the stalwart conservative has played an important role in guiding the court on a rightward course, even if he has not gotten everything he has advocated. Thomas, who is 77, has served since October of 1991, having been appointed at the age of 43 by Republican President George H.W. Bush to replace the liberal Thurgood Marshall. Thomas on Monday will overtake Justice Stephen Field, who served from 1863 to 1897 for the court's third longest tenure. Thomas on Thursday will leapfrog his late former colleague, Justice John Paul Stevens, who served from 1975 to 2010 for the second longest tenure. If Thomas remains until, and this is why a lot of people don't think he's going to retire, if he remains until May 20th of 2028, he could set the court's longevity record, passing Justice William O. Douglas, who served from 1939 to 1975. Yeah, think about the amazing job that Clarence Thomas has done throughout his career. Now, what's in store for Thomas, they ask. He said, it's hard for me to imagine that becoming the longest-serving justice is not some sort of importance to him, said one expert. Thomas in the past has hinted at a lengthy tenure. During a 2019 talk at Pepperdine University in California, Thomas had asked what he might say at his retirement party in 20 years' time. He said, but I'm not retiring. Not in 20 years. Not in 30 years? Nope. So congratulations to Clarence Thomas. We've got a lot to cover. I'm going to start the next hour with a thought-provoking question. Then we're going to get into the kind of what the Democrat Party is facing. And then we do have an update, some New York State updates. As I mentioned, our assemblymen and senators are headed back to Albany today. Obviously, we still do not have a budget here on May the 4th. The budget was due on April the 1st. So we'll give you a couple of updates on what is being said. That coming up in just a little bit. But as I said, hour number one. Oh, I never even told you about who my guests were. I said I had an announcement, and then I forgot when we got back. On Friday, we're going to be talking with Joseph Hernandez. He's running for New York State Comptroller. That's on Friday. And right after Mr. Hernandez, fan favorite, current assemblyman, former congressman, Joe Sempolinski. So he'll be joining us. That's a jam-packed Friday. I know you're not going to want to miss that. So I wanted to pass it along to you so you can mark it in your calendar. But now we do have to take that break. Stay with us. Hour number two coming up.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Whether you're in the market for new, used, or certified pre-owned, Simmons Rockwell locations across the Twin Tiers have more of what you're looking for with our best price right on the windshield. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
You deserve primary care that connects. Care that helps you move forward. Care that connects you to world-class specialists. Care that connects you to providers who are part of your community. And care that connects you to the life you love. Because great healthcare comes from providers who care about connection just like you. Find your primary care appointment at centralishealth.org/schedule.
Spring Value Days are here, and our prices are lower than ever. Stop by
your neighborhood value home centers and spring into savings. Save over 50% on Roundup Dual Action Weed and Grass Killer or Ortho Home Defense Max Insect Killer, $9.97 each. Save up to 50% on Miracle Grow 3-pound plant food or Miracle Grow 8-quart potting mix, $3.99 each. Spring starts at value.
Value for the do-it-yourselfer. Do-it-yourselfer.
And we welcome you to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Akem. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. So I said I would do a thought-provoking question. According to Sarah Baxter, and I forget the outlet, I almost want to say this was The Hill or Politico, but Sarah writes there is only one person Trump would trust to succeed him, but she's too smart to do it. Okay. The president is obsessed with building a dynasty and believes in the power of great genes. But like Logan Roy, the patriarchy and the television drama Succession, Trump loves playing his children off against each other. He thinks it instills a healthy killer instinct in his privileged offspring. If he could handpick his political and showbiz heir, it would be Ivanka. According to the book Apprentice in Wonderland, when Trump left the show to run for president, he wanted his daughter to take it over. I didn't press it, he reportedly said, but I felt Ivanka would have been by far the best person you could hire. Ivanka, 44, is the only child to have served in the White House. She was Trump's senior advisor in his first term, promoting women's empowerment, and played the diplomat and quasi-first lady at summits with foreign leaders. Enough on that. But so your thoughts. Ivanka is the only person Trump would trust to succeed him, but she's too smart to do it. All right, this is interesting. Josh Hammer, we've been talking about the redistricting and what the Supreme Court found. But Josh Hammer at, is this Associated Press, says for almost a year now, America's two parties have been engaged in mass congressional redistricting battle royales. The fun kicked off in Texas last July when Greg Abbott, following Donald Trump's urging, first pushed the Texas legislature to redistrict the Lone Star State's congressional maps in a pro-Republican direction. I would disagree with that. It was actually California who signed it in before Texas, if we want to be technical. But Missouri and North Carolina soon followed, prompting California Governor Gavin Newsom to get in on the action. Golden State voters approved the use of a new map at the ballot box last November. On April 21st, Virginia voters narrowly approved the new congressional map that heavily favors Democrats. This week, Florida responded with a Governor Ron DeSantis-led redistricting that heavily favors Republicans. In the interim, some other states, such as Ohio and Utah, redistricted for non-voluntary reasons such as litigation or statutory requirements. And other states, such as Indiana, famously defied Trump and refused to voluntarily redraw their maps. One might be inclined to ask who started this latest bout of mass gerrymandering. It's true that Texas, an iconic red state, drew first blood last July, although the U.S. Supreme Court didn't finally permit Texas's new map to go into effect until a summary order earlier this week. What's more, Texas's new GOP-heavy map will likely provide Republicans less of a lopsided partisan advantage in its congressional delegation than will California's own new map from the Golden State's Democrat Party. Republicans also claim Democrats have been the more blatant, systemic gerrymanderings for decades, an assertion buttressed by even a cursory glance at bright blue Illinois' hilariously delineated congressional map. Yes, if you've never seen Illinois' congressional map, I would highly recommend it. The reality is that both parties have gerrymandered their respective controlled states for a very long time. That is a tedious and uninteresting observation. The more interesting and pressing question, as the rare mid-decade redistricting war nears its end, is this. Looking at the aggregate nationwide redistricting efforts, which party will come out on top in advance of the midterm elections this November? That's the big question. You've got Hakeem Jeffries taking victory laps as if they were going to win. Then the Supreme Court made their decision. Democrats had a projected one-seat partisan advantage, according to the website Ballotpedia, as of Thursday. But there are multiple reasons why this is likely to change. It appears the big victor will be the GOP. First, this tally does not account for Florida's redistricting map, which just passed through a special session of the Florida legislature on Wednesday and has not yet, as of this writing, been signed into law by DeSantis. That alone will likely net the GOP 4 additional seats. Second, Virginia's controversial ballot referendum redistricting measure, which was just approved by Old Dominion voters by a much narrower margin than by which Virginians swept Democrats back in power last November, is facing serious legal challenges. Most recently, on Wednesday, the Virginia Supreme Court left in place a lower court order blocking the Commonwealth's certification of the referendum results. If Governor Abigail Spanberger's new map is tossed out, Democrats will likely be out an additional 4 seats. Finally, there is a landmark redistricting case that the U.S. Supreme Court just decided this week. The court held that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of '65, which prohibits states and localities from imposing any voting qualification or prerequisite that results in a denial of the right of any citizen to vote on account of race or color, cannot be invoked to create race-conscious congressional maps, a dubious practice lawmakers have been blithely engaging in for decades. The court correctly held that such race-conscious map-making, including the devising of so-called majority-minority districts across many southern states, runs afoul of the 14th Amendment's sweeping equal protection guarantees. Bright Red, Louisiana, which was party to the case, already suspended its upcoming primaries to give its legislature enough time to draw new congressional maps. In addition, many other safe Democrat majority-minority seats across the broader South are now extremely vulnerable. These southern states can either redistrict of their own accord to comply with the Supreme Court's new ruling, or they'll be forced to do so through offensive litigation. Either way, the era of race-conscious map-making is now over. This is first and foremost a victory for the colorblind U.S. Constitution, but it will also benefit the GOP before November's midterms in Louisiana and likely behind. Interesting. So at the end, Josh Hammer says that Republicans set to best Democrats in the mid-decade redistricting battle. Now let's talk about the Democrat Party in general. Did you see Barney Frank? I didn't realize he was doing so bad. He's in hospice for congestive heart failure. He was on, you remember former Representative Barney Frank, I'm sure, Democrat from Massachusetts. Remember Rush Limbaugh used to talk about him quite a bit. On State of the Union, Jake Tapper said, "You are a progressive icon, but now you're expressing some reservations about what the progressive moment has gone. Tell us more." Kind of an easy question. Frank said, "Yeah, I've been trying to decide, by the way, personally, whether it's better to be an icon or an emoji. I haven't decided that yet. But then as far as that is concerned, it's precisely because I have been on the left and I've undertaken this. I think we're in a situation where the mainstream, to my disappointment, for many years ignored inequality. And many of us could forget inequality on the Democratic agenda. But the problem was we succeeded in bringing the mainstream of the left into a concern with inequality. We also enabled people who wanted to use that as a platform for a wide range of social and cultural changes, some of which the public isn't ready for. Even if I agree with them in the end, I think they make a mistake by taking the most controversial parts of the agenda and turning them into a litmus test. And this has been the criticism really of Democrats for a long time. They go to such extremes and they don't understand why you won't latch right on to their extreme position. But then you have their own Democrat Party using it as a litmus test, turning on each other. He said, "My example, same-sex marriage. Obviously, I've been working for gay rights since 1972, when we found the bill and we and the movement established feelings for gay and lesbian and bisexual people. We went to work on those issues, which were more acceptable. We didn't get to marriage until after those things had been resolved. And that's what I'm suggesting that we do today. The analogy is a male and female transsexual playing sports designed for women. I understand his anger about that, and I think in the interest of the transgender community, as well as others, it'd be better to go at that in a more granular way. Instead of you don't support it, you're a homophobe." Great point. So issuing a stark warning from hospice, he said, "It's precisely because I have been on the left that I've undertaken this. The problem was, as we succeeded in bringing the mainstream of the left into a concern with inequality, we also enabled people who wanted to use that as a platform for a wide range of social and cultural changes, some of which the public isn't ready for." I thought that was an important statement. All right. Interesting. All right. James Carville. Oh, we got to go break here. But James Carville, the Raging Cajun, warns Democrats. I got to wonder if James Carville watches this program, because we've been saying this. We said it just recently with Sheriff Jim Allard, but we've said it numerous times on this program. James Carville warns Democrats that abolish ICE is the new defund the police electoral poison. He was on his podcast. Congressional candidate Bobby Polito had been widely quoted for offering an explanation to fellow Democrats as to why aspirational Latino voters have shifted rightward, saying people down here don't consider themselves poor. They consider themselves broke. When you're broke, you say, tomorrow I'm going to make it. Democrats treated people like they were poor, not that they were broke. Carville said he loved this insight. And he praised Polito's answer on whether ICE should be abolished. He basically said, no, we should reform ICE. I think that question, abolishing ICE, is the defund the police of 2026. And Democrats that come into that are giving Republicans an opening. And boy, he didn't. He really answered that well. I want to tip my hat to one of my favorite people in my life in American politics. Keep the goal in mind. You're trying to help people. You don't overreach. You do things that you need to do. Carville went on to contrast his wise man with the blooming idiots at Working Families Party. Look up those dopes. There's not a single person that identifies with them that lives more than 15 miles away from salt water. He went on to argue that Barney Frank, even at 87 years old and possibly nearing the end of his life, represents the future and the success of the Democrat Party. I think he has a point. You won't hear me say that very often about James Carville, but I've been saying it for a long time, and maybe he stole it from us, I don't know, that Democrats have a real issue when they talk about abolishing ICE. It is no different than defunding the police. We're really to that point. And that defunding the police was election poison, and I think this abolish ICE will be the same, especially when you see some of these horrific cases where states aren't working with ICE, like in New York, and then you see these illegal immigrants that end up being part of some disgusting tragedy, some murder. I got a couple examples of that. I have a feeling we won't have an opportunity to get to it on today's broadcast because we still have New York State issues to get to. But we're talking about the Democrat Party and where they are headed before we go into the midterm, before we head to 2028, because they're already talking about the presidential race. So we will be talking about one last thing. This should come as no surprise. Do I have time for this? Yeah. This should come as no surprise. The Democrat National Committee chairman, Ken Martin, he's kind of been a disaster. He won't release their 2025 autopsy on what happened to the Democrat Party. They won't release. He was whining that David Hogg was getting more attention than he was, that David Hogg was the face of the party, and then David Hogg stepped away from the Democratic Party. David Hogg was the one that wanted to see new, farther left Democrats, primary fellow Democrats. Anyway, Ken Martin has had a real struggle trying to be relevant within the Democrat Party, trying to kind of ride the wave of how extreme left they've become. Well, according to a report from Bulwark, 3 anonymous sources inside the DNC who confirmed that the party has grown increasingly frustrated with Martin's leadership, especially after he appeared on Pod Save America, were defending himself against charges that he has backed out of his promise to release an after-action report, an autopsy, about what went wrong in the 2024 election, as well as accusations that the DNC had trouble raising money and balancing its budget. It does sound like they've had issues with fundraising. We know that Republicans outpaced Democrats in fundraising in congressional races, but also this idea that he will, and I said 2025 earlier, I don't know what I was thinking, the 2024 election results that he refuses because he thinks it'll be some type of distraction from what they believe is going to be a huge blue wave in November. So he refuses to, as they call it, after action report, when really what we know it as is an autopsy. Quote, the concerns have become so pronounced in recent weeks that some DNC members have privately discussed trying to force Martin out of his job, according to 3 people familiar with these conversations. The idea was put on hold after members failed to identify an alternative candidate willing to step into that role. The frustration over Martin's leadership has only worsened in recent months, with some members entertaining resolutions that might force him to balance the DNC budget. Quote, I think that would be a very hard job no matter who has it. But Martin seems to be uniquely ill-suited for it, said Democrat strategist Jess Lederich. Under Martin's leadership, the DNC has spent more money than it has raised, while the RNC retains a roughly 7-to-1 money advantage, with Martin taking out a $15 million loan last October for elections in Virginia and New Jersey. Insiders say he may have a similar loan this summer or else lay off staff. The biggest strike against him is that he seems to be utterly incapable of managing a budget. To put the DNC in such a bad financial situation going into what is likely the most wild presidential primary we've had in a while, it reeks of irresponsibility and immaturity. It just feels like we're being gaslit at this point. The loudest people in D.C. and often the furthest away from the doors that are being knocked, while I'm hearing from the state parties, organizers, and activists on the ground, is overwhelming positivity. Since Martin's become DNC chair, we won 30 out of 30 states, including House legislative flips. The strategy is working, said Michael Knapp, defending Martin's tenure. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go, to where we go, to what we do when we get there, we go further, together.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
Get ready. Glass Fest, May 22nd through 24th. Brought to you by Chemung Canal Trust. Experience the magic of live glass blowing. From hands-on fun to incredible sights, there's something for everyone. Explore creations from local artisans. 3 days, one incredible celebration. Brought to you by Corning's Gaffer District. On Friday night, it's Drake White with John King opening. On Saturday, Tracy's A Taylor Experience. Join us for Glass Fest, brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We kick off the work week with a quiet stretch as well as a nice day ahead. 71, a few degrees above daily average. We'll see some sunshine and dry until this evening and overnight. Mostly in the overnight hours, some rain chances arriving with temperatures bottoming out in the mid and lower 50s. Then we'll be warm on Tuesday with mid 70s, but additional thunderstorms in the afternoon. Notice how active
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Viewer writes in, what went wrong with the Democrat Party is as plain as the nose on their face. High taxes, rampant crime, and inflation. The list goes on and on. Democrats are just out of touch with reality. Mark writes in, has anyone else noticed that packages being shipped have slowed since gas prices have soared and shipping rates have too? Oh, that's a good point. I have noticed that, Mark. I appreciate that. So we're talking about the Democrat Party. Democrats are sounding the alarm over Kamala Harris's running for president again. We've talked about this a few times in the past, saying she should have settled for being California governor. The former vice president has been warned if she enters the 2028 White House race, she will face a real burden of defending her past failings in D.C. Matt Bennett, co-founder and executive vice president for the center-left group Third Way, told the New York Times, quote, it's conceivable that she could craft a message, but she's got a lot of explaining to do. Harris became the Democrat nominee for president after Joe Biden stepped aside, of course, leaving her 107 days to campaign. Her book is entitled 107. But she was wiped out across America by Republican candidate Donald Trump, who swept all 7 of the key battleground states, won the Electoral College, won the popular vote. Since then, Harris has been touring the country promoting her book and occasionally commenting on foreign policy. She has said she might run for president in 2028, but has completely ruled out running for governor of her home state. Well, maybe she thought she'd be Eric Swalwell. Maybe there's something in her background that she's afraid of. That's why they got rid of Eric Swalwell, right? They praised him, built him up, and then when they didn't need him and he was actually being detrimental to the Democrat Party, they got him. She said she might run for president in 2028, but has completely ruled out running for governor of the home state. Like I said, Bennett and others like him wish she wouldn't have. She would have been good at it, and it would have been a good job for her, meaning governor. It would have been good for Democrats everywhere. Currently, there are 8 candidates running for governor in the controversy-stricken and surprisingly competitive race for Democrats in the stronghold for the deep blue state, which has consistently voted for a Democrat president since 1988 when it voted for George H.W. Bush. The last time the state had a Republican governor was Arnold Schwarzenegger 2 decades ago. Since the abrupt exit of disgraced Eric Swalwell, who was the favored Democrat being accused of sexual assault by multiple women, the race has shifted. Democrats who are already struggling in a field that appeared to be dominated by Trump, endorsed Steve Hilton, and Republican Chad Bianco now appear further divided. While Becerra has emerged as the leading Democrat, the party's vote remains split among Matt Mahan, Tom Steyer, Katie Porter, and others. See, Tom Steyer, who's a billionaire, got a lot of criticism because he participated in a May Day, one of those May Day protests that was to attack the rich. Of course, he's a multi-billionaire. Anyway, it's pretty obvious she would have dominated the race, meaning the California governor's race. It felt like it was an easy win and an easy walk into the governor's mansion. Wow. While Harris may want to run for president, other Democrats seem to have a distaste for the idea of another, now her 4th presidential run in 2 years, when some of her rivals could include close friend and rumored candidate Gavin Newsom. Notice, a nonprofit digital news outlet, spoke to several politicians on whether they would back the former vice president, and the responses were underwhelming. Many top Democrats, including the state senators, shied away from a glaring endorsement, while former allies and Harris campaign surrogates, like Mark Cuban, said he wouldn't support her run. One anonymous House Democrat said that they would have preferred Harris pursued a gubernatorial path instead, adding, "I don't think I'm alone on this view, that I would have real concerns about her being the nominee." Another Democrat warned that while Harris's name recognition makes her a natural contender, is that a good thing for the party and the country if she's the nominee? No. As this viewer writes in, "Go Harris." I do hope she runs, and this time gets a nod from a vote in the DNC. I hope that happens and it will assure a Republican victory. Hooray. Thank you very much. Yeah, Bill Maher went after Gavin Newsom. This was kind of surprising. Oh, we got to take a short break. I don't want to run too late on this segment. Keep your comments coming in. We do have New York State updates coming up in just a little bit. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
What matters most is that our customers, our communities, and our heroes are taken care of. We start by providing American-made gasoline, which means you can buy local, keeping America and your communities strong. We also support vital charities every year and hold Operation Give Thanks each November to help provide a better future for our veterans and their families. We're proud to support the communities we live and work in, and we're doing our best every day to make our towns a better place. Quick though, driving America.
They say when you love doing something, it stops being a chore. Ferris mowers with patented front and rear suspension are designed to turn hard work into an easy ride, no matter how rough the terrain. Quality cut, less fatigue, more control. Feels like the grass can't grow fast enough. Feels like a Ferris.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So Gavin Newsom thought he was going to walk into friendly territory with Bill Maher. Instead, Bill Maher pushed back on him and his quote-unquote leadership. I say this to you as a friend. You got to let that train go, talking about the long, troubled, high-speed rail. The blunt advice came as Maher ticked through the Golden State's mounting problems. Sky-high gas prices, crushing rents, and a laundry list of economic complaints that critics say define Newsom's tenure. Bill Maher said the other side, what they're going to say, though, is, but have you seen the stats from California? Newsom said, good, fourth largest economy, let's go. Bill Maher said, well, are they going to say good about gas prices? Are they going to say good about how high their rents are? So many people live. I mean, there's a whole litany. Then came the kicker. The state's infamous rail project, now carrying a jaw-dropping price tag. I mean, the train, Gavin. You got to get rid of the train. I say this as a friend. You got to let the train go. Let the train go. It's up to $231 billion. The moment appeared to catch Newsom off guard, his expressions shifting as the criticism landed. Newsom said, Bill Maher drew a sharp contrast, suggesting Newsom's own combative style mirrors the president's. But many people would say that you are imitating him. You are the only one who kind of imitates his style with the trolling, pointing to Newsom's legal threats against Fox News. Newsom said, well, Fox better look to settle right now or apologize for defamation. Maher replied, okay, but that sounds exactly like what he does. Suing media? Newsom said, well, don't defame me. Don't lie. Now, Trump blasted Bill Maher and Gavin Newsom. Trump, who previously sued Bill Maher for failing to pay him $5 million for proving he was not the offspring of an orangutan, wrote online Saturday that the talk show comedian was weak and ineffective at holding the left Democrats' feet to the fire. Last night, I happened to watch Gavin Newsom, an admittedly low IQ person who said he can't read a speech, is dumb and essentially incompetent, and he took Bill Maher over the coals. Either Maher didn't have the knowledge or he choked, because Gavin went on and on about how good California is doing, which is doing very poorly, having by far the worst year it's ever had, where, for the first time in history, more people are leaving than coming. Maher, who made his claim to fame as a liberal comedian, has lurched towards the center. We know all about that. I don't know. I'm surprised he went after Maher. I mean, it seemed like Maher is actually the only person. Well, he finished by saying Bill Maher is a weak and ineffective person who I got to know very well during my dinner with him at the White House. He was nervous, scared, and the first words he uttered as he entered the Oval Office were, "Can I have a drink?" It was very endearing, but at the same time, absolutely pathetic. I don't understand it because, I mean, honestly, Bill Maher is, I don't like Bill Maher, but he is the only one asking Gavin Newsom those tough questions. Have you ever seen Gavin Newsom asked about the train? You're not going to see that by mainstream media politicians. They are propping up Gavin Newsom because they believe he could very likely be the presidential candidate in 2028. So they don't want to do anything to attack him and make him look bad. So that's kind of surprising from Bill Maher. Oh, by the way, George Conway, I can't stand George Conway. Full disclosure, I think how he treated his then wife, Kellyanne Conway, was despicable. It showed him to be a pathetic human being. He would attack Kellyanne Conway's boss, Donald Trump, on Twitter, then attack her. It was very messy. Well, they've since gotten divorced. I think their kid caused some trouble too. But anyway, George Conway, who pretended to be a Republican the whole time and saying, I'm a Republican that hates Trump, he's now running for Congress as a Democrat. All right. At 62, George Conway has been a reoccurring character in the Washington soap opera spanning the Trump era of American politics. His well-documented arc is the stuff of an HBO series. Conway was once celebrated by conservatives as the operative who brought Bill Clinton's affair to light and one of the most successful civil litigators in the country, living the good life as a behind-the-scenes power player with his wife and 4 children. In 2017, Trump was all ready to tap him to become one of the administration's top lawyers, either Solicitor General or as head of the Justice Department's Civil Division. But Conway took himself out of consideration and then guaranteed he would never get such an offer again when he called the Trump administration a blank show in a dumpster fire. Anyway, so he was a big GOP guy, supposedly. That's what they tried to tell us. Now we learn that he is running for Congress as a Democrat. All right. Oh, do I have time? Yeah. Michigan State Senator and U.S. Senate candidate Mallory McMorrow was on CNN's Inside Politics. Host Manu Raju said, "Why delete these 6,000 tweets? Because you did it after the New York Post had reported on it last year, and after you were a candidate in this race. I mean, there were things that you suggested there. You suggested even there are parallels between Nazi Germany and what was happening in America under Trump. Why do you delete these after you become a candidate? Do you think that they were going to be too problematic for you in this election?" Morrow said, I didn't, this was the decision to delete everything prior to 2021 of my opponents of duel. I'll say I did the same, deleting some of the more controversial views on completely defunding the police. It's cleaning up social media, which I think is something everybody should have stopped doing that. What? So just to follow up on that question, do you personally see parallels between Nazi Germany and what's happening under the Trump administration? She said, yes, I do. It is deeply concerning that we see an authoritarian slide. And as we talked about earlier, dividing people against each other to convince people that if you're not doing well economically, it's somebody else's fault. It's an incredibly dangerous place for us to be in. And I don't think that a lot of people would argue that there are shades of authoritarianism here that we need to be deeply concerned about. All right, we're going to talk when we return about New York's. Oh, how about this? A guest essay by Christopher Caldwell. America is officially an empire in decline. Well, that's an attention-grabbing headline. The skepticism about America that led Americans to turn to Mr. Trump was a healthy one. If a globalist system built on free trade, democracy promotion, and mass migration is so great, Trump voters asked, then why have we had to borrow $35 trillion since we took it up? That's a genuinely good question. Mr. Trump was a perfect candidate for Americans who suspected something had gone wrong with their elites. His argument basically was that America-led globalism was so beneficial to politicians that once in power, they would defend it even against the voters, no matter what they said while campaigning. Events, alas, have proved him right. All right, now we're going to take that short break. When we come back, we got some New York State updates. We're going to hear quickly from a press release I received from Congressman Langworthy. So stay with us. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. What break is it? Hold on. After this.
Don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Watch news from the Twin Tiers and catch local events on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
Get ready for Glass Fest, May 22nd through 24th. Brought to you by Chemung Canal Trust. Experience the magic of live glass blowing. From hands-on fun to incredible sights, there's something for everyone. Explore creations from local artisans. 3 days, one incredible celebration. Brought to you by Corning's Gaffer District. On Friday night, it's Drake White with John King opening. On Saturday, Tracy's A Taylor Experience. Join us for Glass Fest. Brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Everyone has a community, a neighborhood, school, place of worship, or other chosen groups. Communities can provide support when you need it, including helping your kids avoid underage drinking and other substance use. Learn more at talktheyhearyou.samhsa.gov.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We kick off the work week with a quiet stretch as well as a nice day ahead, 71, a few degrees above daily average. We'll see some sunshine and dry until this evening and overnight. Mostly in the overnight hours, some rain chances arriving with temperatures bottoming out in the mid and lower 50s. Then we'll be warm on Tuesday with mid 70s, but additional thunderstorms in the afternoon. Notice how active this stretch will be through the weekend.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. The person who asked about AOC primarying Hochul or not, I have not ever heard that. I know there's a lot of talks about AOC primarying Chuck Schumer for Senate, but I don't see a scenario where she would primary Governor Hochul. There's no real upside for her there. Hochul is pushing enough of an agenda. I think it's the Chuck Schumer that she's looking at because people think that Chuck Schumer isn't far left enough, that he hasn't been effective enough against Trump. So the speculation is she's either going to run against Schumer in a primary or Schumer retires. He would retire if he thinks he could lose. He doesn't want that to be kind of his legacy. Or there's people talking about her running for president, of course. Another viewer wrote in, I was wrong. It was a $600,000 lawsuit Corning school taxpayers had to pay. Vote no on the budget, they write. Yes, there was, I remember we brought it up at the time, Corning Painted Post School District, $600,000 settlement payout. That was last year, sometime in the summer. The legal settlement approved by the district involves alleged sexual misconduct by a district teacher at the middle school between 2009 and 2010. The board approved the settlement filed in New York State Supreme Court in exchange for the withdrawal and release of all claims and other valuable considerations to be set forth in the settlement agreement and general release. The resolution was read aloud by the newly appointed board president, Kelly Bacalus, it says here at the time. All right, so thank you for that. By the way, if you are curious, the school budget vote is May 19th from 11 to 8 p.m., 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the 4 normal polling places. You'll get a card, I'm sure. Remember, the total recommended budget, $150,709,245. Wow. Now, Ken writes in, as usual, I'm confused on what the sheeple see in the Democrat Party. I assume that what Rush always said is true. They are largely uninformed, and their views are molded by the misinformation sound bites that they hear from the legacy media. This goes back to what I've said in the past. How do we make the legacy media report unbiased political news? That's the billion-dollar question. They won't. I don't think there is any way, unfortunately. I think that's why you need to kind of combat it with people like Rush and Fox News and the like. Okay, so I mentioned Congressman Langworthy. He hailed the release of 1,500 beagles from Rigland Farms, a large-scale beagle breeding facility in Blue Mounds, Wisconsin, that had been documented for grotesque animal abuses. Rigland Farms housed approximately 2,000 beagles bred solely for laboratory testing and has faced sustained public scrutiny, protests, and legal action over animal welfare violations, including allegations of conducting surgeries without anesthesia. Following pressure from Congress Langworthy and others, the facility has transferred 1,500 beagles to animal welfare organizations who've begun the rehabilitation and adoption process. They're set to turn over their state license immediately as well. In April, Congressman Nick Langworthy sent a letter to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Dr. Janita Becerra urging immediate action to end National Institutes of Health funding for research involving dogs sourced from Rigland Farms, as well as requesting a timeline to end the federal support for invasive research involving dogs and cats. Congressman Langworthy commended the Trump administration's efforts to reduce unnecessary animal testing and modernize biomedical research, while calling for stronger action to ensure taxpayer funds are no longer used to support invasive testing on dogs bred solely for experimentation. Congressman Langworthy said, the practice of breeding dogs and cats solely for painful experimentation and euthanasia is wrong. My heart breaks for those innocent beagles who are victims of their docile temperament, and the very least we can do is ensure that not one penny of taxpayer dollars is spent on enriching the monsters responsible for inflicting such cruelty and abuse. Ridgeland Farms is facing its last days, but our work is not done. I'm working with HHS to make sure we never spend another federal dollar that leads to cruelty against dogs and cats. We have a duty to ensure that federally funded research reflects both humane treatment and modern scientific standards. As better and more reliable alternatives continue to emerge, there is zero excuse for continuing to support painful, outdated, and unnecessary animal testing practices. So that's from the congressman. Okay. I see some comments coming in. We'll read those in a little bit. Let's get on to the New York State budget. There is no budget deal yet, as you know. Kathy Hochul said our teams are going to continue working day and night for the entire weekend, but noted that the budget deal announcement should be expected before lawmakers return next week and are briefed should not be expected, before lawmakers return next week and are briefed by legislative leaders. That doesn't mean a deal is imminent or on the table. It's just another step in negotiations. But next week, she said, could be big. Quote, next week should be a very significant week in this process. Okay. Significant week. Also, we learned, she said she does not expect a budget deal this weekend, obviously, it didn't, but is hopeful that once lawmakers return to Albany in conference, what she and legislative leaders discussed earlier next week, a deal could come with the following week. She said staff could continue to work day and night throughout the weekend. The budget was due on April the 1st, as you know, and is Hochul's fifth straight late spending plan. If Hochul signs budget bills any later than next Saturday, which is a distinct possibility, it will be the latest state budget since 2010. Hochul told reporters that she is not interested in providing even more money to New York City to address its fiscal crisis than what has been proposed, and stressed that her staff is working with New York City officials to nail down details around that tax on luxury second homes worth $5 million or more. Now there is talks about that reaching upstate communities, upstate municipalities as well. It was originally a city issue, but Hochul notably did not definitively rule out expanding that, I don't know how you say it, pied-à-terre tax to upstate municipalities on an opt-in basis, a push that State Senator Pat Fahey has undertaken to help address the fiscal woes of cities outside of the Big Apple. Fahey has taken advantage of the late budget to gain support for the plan, but it has faced obstacles, including Hochul's resistance to additional taxes and questions over how much money it could generate. Quote, this was an objective to help the city out with this particular crisis. We haven't had time to talk about those other areas. I'm not looking to add a whole lot more to this budget. The objective is to be closing it down. I would have to take another look. Now, while not an endorsement, the governor's comments were notable considering she has no problem ruling out dialing back the PTET tax credit to assist New York City earlier this week. Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins and Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie lent soft support for the proposal earlier this week. We'll tell you a little bit. Oh, no, I got a second here. Rick writes in, Frank, if Trump is such a tough guy and Iran's regime leadership, nuclear capability, Air Force, Navy, and Army are all obliterated, why can't we open the strait? Because Iran still has capability. Maybe he should sue Iran like he does everyone else. I paid $4.39 for gas today. That's up like $1.40 from a couple of months ago. That's up $1.40 for everyone in the States, all because of one person, Donald Trump. Wait till you see your food bill starting this summer due to fertilizer prices. Let's all get behind him, Frank. He doesn't care about us. He cares about Donald Trump. That's it. Let's hop on the plane at noon on Friday and cheat at golf all weekend. Let's all look up to that guy for strength and guidance. Trump's plan for Iran is to get a fast deal or blast them. Very studious. That's thinking like a leader. That's like Nobel Prize territory. Oh, I forgot he took one of those from somebody that really earned it. Classy. Studious and classy is the same paragraph for Donald. What? Attaboy. How's those bone spurs doing? Wow, you're covering a lot here, Rick. Not really. I'm getting a little rambling here. Okay, smooth move, Donald. Move 5,000 troops out of Germany because the German chancellor said something you didn't like. That'll make Europe safer. Heck, we all say something he doesn't like. Some of us don't say it in public, though. Right, guys? Enjoy your week. Thank you, Rick. Enjoy your week as well. This is interesting. No, I'm going to take a break. I don't want to run too late. It's hard to believe this broadcast is almost through. As I mentioned on Friday, it's a really exciting show. We're going to be talking with New York State Comptroller candidate Joseph Hernandez. He's running on the Republican ticket. He's going to be joining us on Friday morning in the 6 o'clock hour. Then the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking with former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. So make sure you get your questions in for both gentlemen so that I can ask them on the air. All right, we got to take that break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
New York State is putting nearly $60 million towards improving key roadways across the southern tier.
Many older homes are still at risk for exposing residents to high levels of lead.
The Nani Hood Parent Resource Center once again brought the community together for its annual Halloween parade.
Around the southern tier, Finger Lake stands out for its scenery and wine scene. This year's dry drought brought some positives to the crop. Lee Com Center is looking for fans to show up and show out.
We are the keepers of the wild, America's original and most invested conservationists. For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving wildlife and the natural landscapes that define our nation. From rugged alpine ridgelines to peaceful tall grass prairies, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. Our funding has led to cleaner water, fresher air, and improved wildlife habitat. From abundant fish and waterfowl populations to robust deer and elk herds, nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters, stewards of the American outdoors.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer: that animal testing segment makes me angry beyond measure. If I could get my hands on those perpetrators, I would subject them to the same torture they metered out. What kind of people are these monsters? Yeah, you could tell Congressman Langworthy was very passionate about correcting that wrong. We had talked about it originally when the letter was sent, so I was glad that something was finally done. This is interesting. I don't have a lot of information on it, but a new Democrat-sponsored bill in Albany, we're talking about New York here now, a new Democrat-sponsored bill that would delay the electric school bus mandate is scheduled to move in the state Senate this week. The newly amended Packaging Extended Producer Responsibility Bill is also teed up to move in the state Senate next week. But that's all the information they give us about it, that it's some type of delay on the electric school bus mandate. We'll see if that goes anywhere. We'll probably talk with Joe Sempolinski on Friday about it, if it's something to be excited about or if it's just kind of what Governor Hochul does so often, which is make it look as if they're doing something and then there's no teeth to it. But as I mentioned, that tax on the second home could find its way upstate. There's a whole piece on that here at the Empire Report if you'd like to see it. Fahey again said, I have many, many towns and villages that really could use extra help. The AIM money has been really critical in upstate. She said values in resort areas like Lake George and parts of the Finger Lakes have soared since the COVID-19 pandemic, with many homes sitting vacant for much of the year or being used as short-term rentals. A second home tax may tamp down the market some. Many of the workers and many of the community members have really been, or their children have been, priced out of the community that they grew up in. While the proposal is just an idea, so they're going to sell their homes to the people that can't afford them? They're going to sell their $5 million mansions to members of the community that have been priced out of the community? That doesn't really make a lot of sense. It just seems like someone that's really excited to put on more taxes. A lot of second homes pay the freight for the school system and for all the municipalities, said Daniel Davies, a real estate agent in the southern Adirondack region. But they really don't send school kids to the school system. They are paying their way, in my opinion. So we'll see where that goes. Hochul has kind of been wishy-washy on it. Okay. How am I doing? No, let's take another break. This is our last break of today's edition of Frankly Speaking, so get your last second comments in, and we will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
At Quickfill, what matters most is that our customers, our communities, and our heroes are taken care of. We start by providing American-made gasoline, which means you can buy local, keeping America and your communities strong. We also support vital charities every year and hold Operation Give Thanks each November to help provide a better future for our veterans and their families. We're proud to support the communities we live and work in, and we're doing our best every day to make our towns a better place. Quick though, driving America.
This year, WYDC is bringing you 25 New York Mets games free over the air this spring and summer. No fees and no subscription services. Tune into WJKP 48.2 to watch the New York Mets this MLB season. Let's go Mets!
Glass Back the Park, presented by Simmons Rockwell. Saturday, May 23rd is Tracy's A Taylor Experience.
Welcome to our tribute to the Eras Tour.
Free and open to the public. Brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Down in play, I'll write your name.
Meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We kick off the work week with a quiet stretch as well as a nice day ahead. 71, a few degrees above daily average. We'll see some sunshine and dry until this evening and overnight. Mostly in the overnight hours, some rain chances arriving with temperatures bottoming out in the mid and lower 50s. Then we'll be warm on Tuesday with mid 70s, but additional thunderstorms in the afternoon. Notice how active this
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer: only 992 days left in Trump's presidency. Over 2.5 years, make America great. Thank you very much. In New York, a sweeping state recycling bill. This sounds like typical New York State. It calls for companies to stop using plastic wrap when packaging products. So everyday items will increase in cost, like diapers, toilet paper, those type of things, or leave them soggy and unusable. The proposed Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act would require companies with net income exceeding $5 million that sell or distribute certain material and products to reduce and phase out toxic or non-reusable packaging, replacing it with reusable and environmental-friendly alternatives. Other states have similar green packaging programs, including Maryland, Maine, Oregon, Colorado, California, and Minnesota, and some countries employ them as well. New York creates nearly 5 pounds of trash apiece every day. New Yorkers create nearly 5 pounds of trash apiece every day. Okay. Manufacturers would be required to reduce their non-green packaging by 10% within 3 years and 30% in 12 years. They would also be required to have at least 5% of their packaging qualify as reusable or refillable by 2032. Meanwhile, at least 25% of packaging would have to be recycled by 2032, with increases to 50% and 75%. New York State must follow suit to meet the moment for environmental accountability, said the memo justifying the legislation, sponsored by State Assemblywoman Deborah Glick of Manhattan and State Senator Peter Harkin of Peekskill. The legislative shifts the onus of recycling and waste hauling for packaging from municipalities and residents and ensures that producers of products are serving our interest by establishing solutions to sustainable packaging. And also, since we're talking about New York, some of the most infamous killers in history, including John Lennon assassin Mark David Chapman and son of Sam serial murderer David Berkowitz, could soon be freed if Albany passes a pair of woke parole bills. So rest assured, I'm sure the parole bills will pass. The Elder Parole Bill would let violent criminals dodge their minimum sentences, regardless of how heinous their crimes, and be granted early parole hearings after they've turned just 55 years old, folks, and serve 15 years of their sentences. Think of this. What is it about coddling criminals that Albany loves so much? A second left-wing measure, the Fair and Timely Parole Bill, would require the state parole board to release convicts regardless of the severity of their crimes unless they are a current danger to the public. Both bills could result in the release of vicious killers, even if they were sentenced to life in prison. A law enforcement official said, considering some of the most heinous and noteworthy people in prison today, they will undoubtedly be released within the next 2 years if these bills are signed into law. Imagine that, David Berkowitz walking the streets of New York. The Elders Bill lead sponsors are Senator Cordell Clear, Democrat from Manhattan, and Assemblywoman Martiza Davila, Democrat from Brooklyn. Under the measure, Inmates who are sprung are entered into community supervision as if they served their full sentence. If they are rejected for parole, they must be informed in writing as to the factors and reasons for the denial and automatically get a new chance at freedom after 2 years. Every 2 years, victims' families would be dragged back to the parole board to fight against the release of their loved one's killer. The fair and timely parole bill lead sponsors are radical socialists, State Senator Julia Salazar, a Democrat from Brooklyn, and Assemblyman David Weprin. The legislation makes it much easier for jailbirds to set free, provided they're model prisoners, no matter how bloodthirsty their crime. The People's Campaign for Parole Justice, which is advocating for both bills, says Salazar and Weprin's legislation would provide more meaningful parole reviews. Olive Murphy, a violent crime survivor and policy and communications associate for Release Aging People in Prison, defended both bills, saying inmates who have taken accountability for their crimes and done the hard work of transforming their thinking and behavior should be freed. Whew. So that bill, and I don't think it comes as any surprise, I'm sure New York State will undoubtedly pass it. That would make the worst of the worst killers, including Son of Sam and John Lennon assassin, would be released. Boy, we are nearly out of time. A couple of quick things. Oh, there's a really interesting piece by Jonathan Turley. We don't have an opportunity to get to all of it. As you see, the time is running up. But Jonathan Turley says, calling the Corps illegitimate is the left's latest assault on the Constitution. What these figures do not mention is that the majority of opinions by the Supreme Court are unanimous or nearly unanimous. Comparatively, few cases break along strict ideological lines. Indeed, just last week, it was President Trump who was denouncing the conservative justices as disloyal and weak for, again, ruling against his administration. It is not the voting record, nor the underlying interpretations that are motivating the campaign of delegitimization. It is power. Former Attorney General Eric Holder explained it most clearly recently in pushing the Supreme Court. Quote, we're talking about the acquisition and the use of power. If there is a Democrat trifecta in 2028. So packing the court, rigging the system. A couple of comments before we head out. Ken writes in, I have to give credit where credit is due. I don't agree with anything Rick says, but I have to applaud the fact that he takes time to listen to what conservatives have to say on Frankly Speaking. If more liberals did that, we could have more productive political conversations. Thank you, Ken. Mark writes in, why let vicious criminals free in New York State? What's next? Yeah, it's just, we talk about it all the time with that kind of virtue signaling out of Albany. They just want to get that press release. They want to have that press conference where they show, for whatever reason, they're helping criminals and tying the hands of the police. It's really, really strange. A couple of quick things. Can we run through these quickly? A TikTok trend, if you use TikTok, using audio that references the assassination of Charlie Kirk in outfit transition videos is drawing backlash from Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA issued a statement on Saturday saying Turning Point USA condemns in the strongest terms the TikTok audio trend that uses or references the assassination of our founder, Charlie Kirk, for entertainment. The video, which have circulated across social media in recent days, show users incorporating the audio of the shooting into outfit transition clips, a format widely used on TikTok. Turning Point said Charlie Kirk was a victim of a real act of political violence. Turning that into viral content is grotesque and dehumanizing. The organization added that the trend reflects a broader cultural issue surrounding online content. There's nothing harmless, funny, or acceptable about it. It reflects a culture that trivializes violence and reduces real human loss to a punchline. This has no place on TikTok or anywhere. The audio needs to be removed. All right, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the waves. We really do appreciate it. As I mentioned, Friday's going to be a big day as we talk with Joseph Hernandez, the New York State Comptroller candidate. And then after that, we're going to be talking with Joe Semplinsky. We have other guests coming up. I just want to make a special note of that because I know Joe is a fan favorite, but also it's exciting to have Joseph Hernandez coming off the heels of having Bruce Blakeman on just a few weeks ago. So please get your questions in from either Joseph Hernandez or Joe Semplinsky as the week will go quick. It'll be Friday in no time. Well, maybe that's wishful thinking. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I look forward to it already.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is a start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amira Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
If you want an experience that wakes you up, a place where you can scream to your heart's delight, go ahead. No one will hear you anyway. Here, you don't just watch. You feel. Come as you are and have a damn good time. That rumble you hear, that growl you feel, that's us.